Admitting all. Here we all are, 11 a.m.
Morning.
Here we go. Good morning, everybody. Good to see everyone. Hi, Amber. Hi, Karen. Thanks for sharing your lovely faces this morning. We're at 11 a.m. and welcome to the Regional Business Support Network monthly Biz Bite. So for those of you who are here live, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Hi, Amanda. Good to see you. Welcome back from holidays.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you.
So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Michelle McFadden-Loomis. I am the Business Development Advisor with the Regional Business Support Network. And we do a monthly Biz Bite on a topic that helps growing and scaling businesses, essentially grow and scale. And today we're talking about growing and scaling your people and technology with AI expert and HR expert all rolled into one. Teresa Lynn from Clarity at Work. If you don't know Teresa, I suggest you get to know her. She's an amazing human and makes me feel like, as an avid AI user myself, a kindergartner on the block with her amazing knowledge. So as soon as I met Teresa, I had to say, will you come speak to the people that the Regional Business Support Network serves? So with that somewhat messy introduction on a Wednesday that kind of feels like a Monday, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Teresa to introduce herself and get us started on our powerful Biz Bites, which is a lot of information in a very little time. And don't worry if you are taking notes and miss things that are being said. I will send the recording of this session out to you via email, as well as access to our entire Biz Bite library. So with that said, if you are not the presenter today, aka Teresa, if you wouldn't mind just muting your microphone, and she will have some questions for you to answer in the chat, and then we'll have our Q&A at the end. So with that said, Teresa, let's hear about human performance in an AI-enabled world.
Well, hi, everybody. Good morning. Cheers. It's coffee, no Baileys today. So thanks, Michelle, and thanks to RBSN and the supporting organizations for having me today. I'm Teresa Lynn. I'm the CEO and founder of Clarity at Work, and I'm going to give you a little promise as we start off today. This is not going to be a technology demo. I am not going to show you which buttons to push in ChatGPT. So hands off the keyboard, big cup of coffee, and we're good. This is a leadership session. So everything that I share today is going to work whether you're an organization of 3 people or 300, and whether you have a budget of 0 or 6 figures. The principles will stay the same regardless of what AI tools you're implementing. So let's get to it. A few seconds on why I'm the one talking about this. So I've spent my adult career in organizational transformation, leadership, and technology. I spent 20 years at TELUS and quite a few industries prior to that. And I now help mid-sized businesses and organizations get the people side of AI right before the technology runs headfirst into your culture. 3 things that I specifically help teams do. We make AI adoption actually stick. We turn HR from paperwork into real strategy, and we lead through change and crisis. So everything today is going to ladder up into those pillars, and the credentials are on the left-hand side if you're one of those people that likes looking at the letters. But what matters is that I've sat in the messy middle of these rollouts numerous times, and I'm pretty well equipped to talk about why they stall. So here's a corner pin of what we're going to talk about today. AI doesn't replace people. It exposes the gaps in how we lead, develop, and organize our people. So let's have a little kind of scenario to help reinforce this. A small accounting firm buys an AI tool that's going to be used to draft client emails. If they already have a very clear standard for what good client communication sounds like and looks like, AI is going to make that go faster. If they've never defined that standard, then AI just helps them send mediocre emails faster. Technology doesn't create the mediocrity. It just brings it to the forefront. And this is a pattern behind everything else that we're going to talk about today. And notice that their sentence on the right, if your people practices, your HR capacity, those need to be the staircase before the technology evolution, not after. If you try and do it in reverse order, you're going to fall down the stairs. So here's a question, and let's all be honest with ourselves if this has happened in our organizations. So you buy the tool, or in the AI world, you subscribe to it. You announce it with a really fun, cheerful email, and then 6 months later, you have a couple of keeners that are using it. Everybody else has forgot about it. You're not getting the productivity benefits you expected, and nobody can really articulate why. So I'm going to give you an example, and we're going to bring this through the conversation today. So we're going to talk about a 22-person electrical contracting company. The owner understands that quoting is a mess. It's got inconsistent pricing, and the owner is spending Friday afternoons redoing estimates that should have been correct the first time, but aren't. And it's been this way for a couple of years, so this is not a new problem. He reads something about an AI tool out there that's speeding up estimating. He subscribes, spends $80 a month, shows the estimators during their Thursday morning staff briefing, and then sends a text out to the group chat saying, use it, and calls it done. Well, 6 months later, one estimator is using it sometimes. The other ones have drifted back to their spreadsheets. The quoting process still looks the same as it did before, and the Friday afternoon rework is still landing on the boss's lap. Not to mention the $80 a month that he's still spending and not getting any return on investment. So was the problem actually the lack of a tool? Or was it that nobody had ever mapped out how a quote was supposed to move from first site visit to final number? Nobody had ever agreed on what information had to be captured when. Nobody has figured out where the inconsistency was actually coming from. So a faster tool running on top of broken processes, they don't fix the process. It just makes the broken parts happen faster. So that $80 a month isn't a technology investment. It's a bit of a charge on an unexamined problem, which is really disappointing. So when a tool isn't being used, where does your attention tend to go? And if you're like most owners and leaders in organizations, it's going to shoot to the left-hand side. So the tool selection, the features, whether you pick the right platform, if the rollout was right or could have been better, or if you're like me and a former TELUS person, it's going to go to the get a bigger stick and beat them harder. And we will squeeze our people to use this tool, damn it. And that's where the energy is going to go. And that's where the money is going to go when you decide to try again and again and again. And to reinforce this, bit of a shocking stat is 80% of all AI implementations fail and never actually see general productivity on the other side. They don't ever hit prime time. And that's a stat from the Project Management Institute. So I just didn't make that up. The right-hand slide of this side is where the adoption actually gets decided. And none of this is really about the technology. So can your managers describe in plain words what good use of the tool looks like? Not just use it more or it'll save you time. Specifically, what good looks like. Because if they can't articulate it, then your employees can't aim for it. And do your employees know what's sanctioned? Well, like what they're legitimately allowed to do and what needs a second set of eyes and what is completely off limits entirely. And in the absence of that answer, most people make the safest choices available to them, which is to keep doing what they were already doing. And lastly, has leadership shared the story and set the standard about why this matters? Not just sending the email, but like the actual story where we say it out loud. Here's where we're headed. Here's why we've made this decision. Here's what it means for the work that we do. And that's the right-hand side of the slide. It's where the performance lift will actually exist. And it's got nothing really to do with features or integrations of technology. So back to our electrical contractor. He switched platforms, but got the same result because the right-hand slide was kind of empty for his organization the entire time. So where AI goes wrong. So before I give you the fixes, here's typically where these are going to go wrong. And every one of these is avoidable. So the first one I'll call out is starting with the technology instead of the problem. Two would be shipping the tool out to your people, but never leading the people through the change. Three would be no guardrails. So people are going to guess. And sometimes that means your client data is going to end up in a public tool. Four, measuring only the cost that you've reduced rather than the value that you create. And then five, scaling everywhere before you've proven a single pilot or workflow. So none of these are technology failures. These are people, processes, and leadership activities, which is really good news because those are the things we can control. And in our next couple of slides, we're actually going to talk about what to do to minimize the risk. So start at the outcome and work backwards. Most businesses come at this from the left side and work to the right. I come at it from the right side and work to the left. So they will immediately get a tool and go, where can we plug this into our organization? Where I like to think the better question is, what does good actually look like? Not what are we doing now, but what is the ideal state and the outcome that we'd be proud of? So back to our electrical contractor, the real problem is not slow quoting. The quotes were inconsistent and the jobs were getting underpriced and the owner was fixing the numbers every Friday. What good looks like would be every quote goes out the same day as the site visit complete and doesn't need the owner's hands on it before it leaves the email. So if you worked backwards from that ideal state, let the technology capture the right information, or let the technician capture the right information on the site. Use AI to draft the quote using those notes. He'll review it, send it, and get it done. So the tool isn't the bolt-on, it's the bridge from ideal state to that place that we're starting now. And you're not just putting new technology on top of crappy existing processes. And here's where the shift will happen when you design it kind of from perfect to backwards, is the owner will direct the outcome. The office manager now directs the standard. The technician directs the AI and checks its quality of work before it goes out the door. So everyone is moving from doing activities to orchestrating and directing. And that cascade of activities is kind of the whole point. So what changes for your managers? Oh boy. So managers are the make or break layer in any organization and certainly in AI shifts. And they're also typically the most under-supported people in the entire situation when it happens. So let's think about our electrical company again. Our manager, our site super, his job used to be, did you get the quote done? And now it needs to be, how did you use the tool on the quote? Did the result meet our standards? Were we meeting the timelines? That's a completely different conversation that he's expected to have, and nobody's really trained him for it. Most managers across almost every organization got promoted because they're excellent at doing the activities. So setting a standard for a brand new category of work it's not a skill that they were just kind of born with. We have to give them the framework before we expect them to coach to it. And they're also our first line of governance. So if our site supervisor doesn't know what the policy is on AI drafted client communications, his team most certainly won't. And once again, that's not a technology problem. It's a management support function that needs to be beefed up. And I would also say, as somebody who climbed through the ranks of just about every layer in an organization, a little empathy is going to go a long ways with your managers in the AI evolution, because we're going to talk about fear right away. And trust me, they've got a lot of it. So speaking of fears, what changes for your employees? So your employees are caught between two fears that kind of cancel each other out. So on one hand, it's if I don't use AI, I'm going to look slow and fall behind. I'm going to be the dinosaur. It's not going to work out well. And then on the other extreme, you have if I do use AI, damn it, I'm going to be so good at it, I'm going to automate myself right out of a job. And so, stuck between those two forces, people are going to either freeze entirely or, worst case scenario, they're going to do the dangerous thing. And that means they're going to use AI in secret. So, a little bit of a shift on an example to reinforce this one. So, let's talk about a business development employee who is measured on sales. And this person is good at what they do. So, they quietly paste their assigned client list into a free AI tool to simply brainstorm some outreach ideas for growing that sales revenue. The intention is good. Use AI to research your prospects and brainstorm strategies that are going to maximize the likelihood of them doing business with you. However, they just exposed their company to the significant risk of ever-changing privacy laws and client permission to use their data for certain activities. So the path to legal exposure is paved with really good intentions. And nobody established the firm guardrails for the data use and the AI tools. That business development employee is not a bad employee. This happens daily in organizations that I interact with, and I call it the leadership vacuum. The people sitting around the table making the decisions understood, but it never got communicated like the gutters on a bowling alley to the people that need to execute. So when you say nothing at all, people are going to fill that silence with their own use cases and their own worst case story. But the good news is it's fixable and it's not that hard to fix. So let's diffuse the fear, and it's just 4 simple moves. And none of them are going to cost you anything. You don't even need to do a pizza party. So first of all, let's name this loud and proud across the organization and talk about it. It cannot be a dirty little secret. So in your meeting, say it really plainly. AI is going to change some of how we work. We're going to figure this out together. And nobody here is going to be managed out the door because of this technology implementation. That one sentence is going to lower that fear and that anxiety in your organization a lot. Secondly, let's sanction it. So put a single page up that says, here's where we encourage you to use AI. Here's what's off limits. So if we think about that business development employee, if the company had a simple 1-line policy that said, never ever put customer information into a public AI tool, that would be better than the silence that person was working within. But the real power becomes, don't do this instead. So don't use unauthorized tools for company work. And here's the tools that we vetted. Here's what they're approved for. And here's what stays protected. Nobody has to guess. Go forward and innovate. So back to that bowling alley, we've now carved out those gutters of what's disallowed and what's totally endorsed. And if your ideal state are those pins, you have just enabled your team to start throwing those balls and knocking down the pins. Third, let's protect it. So name the decisions that must stay human. Who to hire, whether to keep an unhappy customer, the hard conversation that nobody wants to have. People need to hear that the judgment piece of this is still theirs. So they feel freed up to use that thinking powder and not being replaced by technology. And then lastly, let's reward it. So let's make it genuinely safe to say, I've used AI to draft this, and equally safe to say, I'm not really sure this output is right. So the moment people can say those phrases out loud, the secret use stops. And the dirty little secrets have gone away. And now the real learning starts because there's cross collaboration. And in the space of AI, where things are changing so fast, The ability for team members to learn and grow off each other's use cases and knowledge is where you're going to get some really cool innovation inside your organizations. So let's think about the way we think of electricity, and then we're going to think about the way we think of AI. So electricity is incredibly useful, and it's in every single room of the building. But we don't let anybody rewire the walls, right? Like, that wouldn't be good. Everybody gets your outlets, but leadership owns the wiring. So when we say AI is just a tool, that's leaving everything to individual judgment. If we think of it compared to electricity, what we're actually saying is we want broad access, but governed centrally. So that's exactly the gut instinct we're going for with our people. And the 4 things that leadership can own that nobody else can really do for you, the policy, what people are allowed to do, what needs human review, where there's a hard stop. That's where permission to innovate lives. And it seems ironic for me to say that innovation is going to live within the guardrails, but it actually does. When people know what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, everything in that space, you say go forth and try and innovate and experiment and come up with cool things and share those success stories and maybe not so success stories, but that's the place where you want to play in there. But you've set the guardrails so nobody's going to do some seriously brand damaging or financially risky maneuvers because they know where to play. Secondly is the narrative. Leadership owns the story about why you're doing it and what it means for people's roles. And if you stay silent, that story is going to write itself and it's going to be terrifying for your teams. The standard, so leadership needs to be able to define what good looks like, and managers need to know it so they can reinforce it. And lastly, the model. And this is bigger than symbolism. It's about walking the walk as an organizational example. So I know I've got some municipal folks on the call. And so let's say we've got a CAO that starts their weekly meeting and says, here's how I used AI this week, including the trial and error moments that maybe didn't pan out so good. Adoption is going to follow that behavior. It will not follow an organization-wide email. People are going to follow what you do, not what you say. And the higher up the organization's food chain, the more people are looking to see what's safe and endorsed. So where does the productivity actually pay off? Because at the end of the day, we're doing all of this and we're spending a lot of energy on it. Where do we actually see the money land in the books? And your people have an absolute right to ask that question. And I would encourage that as part of your culture, they should be asking the question. So the method is quite simple, in my opinion. Let's find the repetitive tasks and consider those. And then let's immediately protect the judgment calls. So if you point your AI at high frequency, low judgment work, that is the easiest place to implement right out of the gate. So drafting, summaries, dashboards, first pass research, meeting notes that nobody likes to write. And I'm sure that Michelle is probably using her AI tool to do the meeting notes today. And then keep your humans firmly in the loop on the high stakes judgment calls. So the who to hire, the evaluation results that might lead to some employee discipline, the price in the contract, the client whose relationship your business depends on. So then the 2 things that people tend to skip: standardize what good looks like, or you're going to lose all of the time savings to redoing the automated workflow, and measure one workflow before and after so you can quantify the benefits. If we go back to our electrical company, let's say they used AI to take messy site visit notes and throw them into a first draft report. A simple, easy to execute kind of use case. You could do it today if you really wanted to. They could then measure the output at a couple hours a week back to their project manager because of this workflow adjustment. They would only know that if they measured before and after. And when you measure before and after, you get quantifiable data that you can replicate and duplicate and expand and grow in your business. and actually put a dollar amount on when it comes to assessing both expense reduction and benefit to the business in other ways that they're driving revenue. So a couple of pro tips from somebody who's walked this one a few times. Don't try and transform everything at once. Pick one repetitive workflow, prove the gain, then move on to the next one. It is a lot easier to turn the dials on little things as you go than to implement 50 things and try and figure out why you only got 20 cents on the hour productivity gain instead of the $4 you projected. And the staircase is really how you're going to build upon AI and automation in your organizations. So if you build the staircase one at a time, two at a time, next thing you know, you've got 12 workflows that are solid, yielding those gains on the other side in a way that you can speak and justify to your board or your departments or reward your team for all of the change they've had to digest. And then I would like to say where AI delivers currently. Before we talk about really where to point AI, let me ground this in why it's worth the effort to even do this. So when the people side is correct, this is what you're going to get for organizational payoff. And it's on the strip kind of at the bottom of the slide. So things like more time back, better educated decisions. So that research piece that AI does really well. Strong employee experience, and there are ways to do AI implementations that improve your culture. And I've got a great use case at the end that I'm working with a business on. And it was something they already had in place. We just gave it 5% more, and it has unleashed a ton of innovation in their business. And then lastly, it allows you to be a little more strategic in your business. So AI can be pretty abstract until you see it with some use cases. So I'm going to give you a few things to spark your creativity. In the hiring and recruiting space, it can screen and shortlist faster, but please make sure that the humans ultimately make the call so you don't wind up with a Workday headline, who is currently part of a class action lawsuit. Onboarding and training, it can build the guide, it can answer the FAQs so that you're not always stuck in that repetitive bottleneck. From a customer service standpoint, it can draft replies, it can schedule campaigns, it can handle some of that routine noise like mailing labels. Drafting and comms, your emails, your proposals, some posts that start as a first draft in minutes, and then you take the people piece into that and go, okay, well, it took me to 75%, let's make it our own, and then take it from there. So it takes some of that heavy lift out of the beginning. It gives you the place of inspiration, so you're not starting from a blank page. You don't have to do all 6. Pick the one that hurts the most in your organization and prove it with one workflow. And that's just method 3 in a really practical kind of execution. So when you put these 3 methods together, it becomes your workforce strategy for AI implementation. And it is 4 things. It is a written people policy that everyone can actually find and understand. It is manager coaching to one shared gold standard. So good use means the same thing on every single team. It is leadership telling that clear, honest story about the why we're doing what we're doing and what it means for the roles inside the organization. And lastly, human judgment is protected where it carries the weight. So if you ponder this list, it's not a line anywhere in here that says build a bigger IT department or spend $20,000 on an AI consultant. What it requires is some leadership attention to some of the change that's going to happen and a lot of forethought into the problems you're actually trying to fix. And I mean, it's really available to anybody today. So here's that group exercise that Michelle talked about. So if you guys want to pop open your chat, I want you to look at these 4 stages and give us a bit of a gut check on where your business or organization actually is at the moment, not where you want it to be. So 1, your organization is curious. You've got a couple of people playing maybe with ChatGPT or another tool, but there's no real plan. Number 2, it's assisting. So some people are using AI for some of their daily tasks, but it's ad hoc and there's not a lot of standards. Number 3, it's integrated. AI is built into some workflows. You have a policy and a shared standard, so the wheel is starting to turn slowly. And number 4, it's transforming. You design the work around the outcome, and you are building AI as if it was another member of your team into all of those workflows. So if you wouldn't
Awesome.
mind giving us a bit of a
We
summary
have
in the
some
chat.
great numbers coming in. Amber is saying her organization's at a 2. Megan's saying a 2.5. Karen is a 2. Ray is a 2. Brittany is a 2. Barbara's a 3. Good on you,
Yay.
Barbara. That's fantastic. Vesna is a 2. Tammy is a 2. Erin is using it as a 2, 3, and 4. Way to go, Erin. I know you're my
amazing.
superstar. And Barbara's typing away again. And we have more too. So basically somewhere between a 2, 2.5 is where our audience is at today.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be department dependent and task dependent and role dependent, because some of these things are going to be a little easier to play with than others, right? So I mentioned I spent 20 years at TELUS. We spent billions of dollars on AI, like billions. And I would say there are portions of TELUS that are absolutely a number 4. There are some at number 3, and there are some processes that just absolutely belonged in a trash can. So I'm not sure if anybody wants to give the little emoji reaction, but did anybody read the headline where TELUS was using AI to minimize call center agents' accents? Right? So the road to hell was paved in good intentions. Somebody looked at some data and it said the number 1 complaint from our customers is we don't understand what the call center agents are saying. So instead of actually, figuring out a way to maybe, I don't know, self-serve some of the common issues, somebody had the brainwave to use AI to make people sound more North American. Like, it was absolutely insane. So there's one for don't do that. And clearly it's not a budget issue because somebody spent millions of dollars to do that poorly.
Mm-hmm. We have one comment from Ray, our another amazing HR expert that we know and love, and he went, yikes.
Yeah, I know.
And as a person with a really mangled Australian Canadian accent, I'm like, I don't know whether I'm offended by that or not. I might be.
I was offended by it. Like, everybody should be offended by it. It's just so wrong on so many levels. Anyway, we talked about method 1, so starting from the outcome and working backwards. So if you kind of look at this and you say, you know what, I'm at a 3 or I'm at a 2 and I want to try and get to 3, let's figure out 1 or 2 places we can go, this is what perfect would look like, or best use case scenario, and then let's just design it backwards. And then this is one for your LT meeting. So if you don't write anything else today, grab a screenshot of this slide. And what I want you to do is go into your next leadership meeting and ask these questions. Do we have an AI use policy? And I mean like our people policy, not the tech security policy. Can our managers say it in plain words without opening like some complicated document or a binder on a shelf, what good AI use looks like, and explain that to their team? And has our leadership team actually had a real conversation about what we expect to be different beyond the vague put some AI on that? And ask them honestly. So if any of those answers are starting to get a little uncomfortable in that meeting, that's probably a really great place to start. It's a really quick way to have a very honest conversation with the leadership team about, here's 3 things, where are we going to start, and how are we going to start to work through these things to make things better? Because if you get the people piece right, your entire AI implementation will go better. So 1 leadership meeting. And if you need a hand, or you want to like noodle an idea you've got, or you are just completely overwhelmed by the entire conversation of AI, on the next slide, there's a QR code. And it will give you some resources that I've built and tucked in the back of my website for the audience today. And you can also just book a half an hour with me, and we will have a coffee and we will talk about AI and what it means for your organization. And there's no sales pitch. This isn't a Teresa fishing for clients, although I won't say no. It is me saying, I'm sitting in your backyard. Use me as the resource that you have. So there you go. I want to thank you for your time and attention today. I know it can be a bit of a heavy subject. So scan the code to connect with me, book the call, grab the resources, and I will give it back to you, Michelle. And if we've got time for questions, now's a good time.
Absolutely. Well, when the content is this good, and thank goodness that the Regional Business Support Network sends out the recording of these sessions, because there's so much to digest. I know I can watch it at least 3 times before I can get all that information absorbed in my head. So Teresa, thank you for amazing presentation. And yes, I think we do have a little time for a little Q&A. So if you would like to, let's just go crazy and go wild. And if you would like to ask a question, just unmute and ask it, or raise your hand. Megan's already got her hand raised. So Megan, you lead the way.
Hi, Megan.
Oh, thank you. And hello, my friend. This was awesome. Thank you so much for this. And thank you to the support network for putting this together. My question really stems from not just, interdepartmental use of AI, but individual use within the organization, right? Everyone here may be using AI, or if they are, they're using it wildly differently.
Yeah.
Right. I have an AI note taker that I use, and it also helps plan out my calendar because, 17,000 things going 17,000 different ways. Other people in our office may use AI, but in a completely different way. What would be your recommendation, aside from starting that conversation with leadership, to help streamline the use of AI within an organization, not only so we're, kind of all on the same AI framework, but also so that like the security of the data is kept intact as well?
Yeah, so you've got a lot there, right? So you're gonna have that staircase of like early adopters who are hell yes, like bring it on, I'll do everything. I'm gonna write my own agents if you would let me bypass our security restrictions, all the way down to the AI is gonna destroy the planet. I don't want anything to do with that. And just like the ecosystem of society, we have those people in our workplace too, that on each end. So I would say the way to work through that is a few things, depending on how much payoff you want to get at the end. I would use it very clearly and quickly. I would start telling the stories of really simple use cases. So things like, honestly, the first thing I automated was my damn expense receipts because I hate doing them. So I picked, and that's what I always tell businesses, pick the one thing that people detest the most, automate that. Because nobody wants to do that anyway. So you're not taking away anything anybody likes. Like you are literally taking away the crappiest role that is sitting on their desk waiting to be done. So do that first. And then you're just going to get some cultural buy-in in that place because you're meeting them where they're at. The other thing is, I hinted earlier about the company in Vancouver. I had somebody ask me about an app they were using with a hotel chain around allowing other team members and clients to send thank yous to the frontline staff at this hotel chain across the States. I thought, really cool idea. And then I said, but do you realize that engagement is like largely driven by shitty work processes? So why don't you use that same app to allow those frontline people to tell you what's irritating them every day? Like, this process is broke. My key card never works in this closet, and I've told my manager 15 times change locks. Right back to that. Fix the thing that causes them pain, and you will get their support. So second, Megan, I would use some of those keener adopters, those social conveners, the ones that can really rah the team through. And I would do some like office hours, lunch and learns, coffee chats, barbecues, whatever, because the more people can talk about oh, you know what, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I tried and I got this on the other side, the more that's going to unleash oh yeah, I guess it is okay to innovate. And then lastly, the leadership team needs to set some standards around these are the tools we're going to endorse. And that's where that security review happens to make sure you're not inadvertently opening up the door to a data breach or a lawsuit. And I don't know what we have on the call. We've had 40 some registered. Every single organization represented needs to make a phone call to your insurance company and say this phrase: if my staff use AI and we cause our own data breach, are we covered? Oh yeah, see that look on your face right there? Yeah, that was the same look I had when I talked to my insurance agent. And she's like, yeah, we should probably give an extra little policy for that. So, but it's those kind of things that people don't think of until you start sitting around a table spitballing the where do we want to encourage this and where do we want to say this isn't allowed. Yeah, and don't get pale. Many EO and I policies actually have this in it, but like just that. So I don't
I'm
know if I answered all
immediately
your
emailing my
questions.
general manager right now.
Yeah, you
That
can
part.
email me too and ask me more and say like I completely missed what you were rambling about. So
Thank you, Teresa.
anytime.
We have just a couple more minutes for some quick questions. Does anyone would like to pick Teresa's brain, and then I'll get you to save the date so when you can see Teresa again, it's coming. Very exciting news. No, nothing
Everybody's
yet.
shy.
That's okay. That's okay. So first thing I want you to do if you're using AI for calendar management is tell it to save the date for October 22nd. Now that week we celebrate Small Business Week with it started with the Business Development Bank of Canada and saying this will be a celebration of small businesses during the third week of October every year. We are celebrating with a full 1-day workshop in Innisfail in person, where Teresa will be guiding us through a 4-hour hands-on workshop about really, the title is just what it is, what we're facing in the land of business right now. AI is in your business. Now what? So save the date. We're excited to put that together with the town of Innisfail, Central Alberta First, the Central Alberta Regional Innovation Network, and BDC are all coming together to bring Teresa into the room for that dedicated 4 hours. And she is also promising, get this, Teresa said it, a 30-day action plan. You'll leave with a 30-day action plan. So for those of you attending live and the recording, you'll be receiving an email link that the registration is open for that event before anybody else because you gave us the time today. So we'll be sending that out for October 22nd. And with that said, thank you so much for participating in this very, very delicate and sometimes controversial, but much necessary business conversation. And we're so glad to have Teresa in our Central Alberta First network and as part of our team of presenters with Biz Bites with the Regional Business Support Network. This has been brought to you at no cost, thanks to the town of Olds, the government of Alberta, and all the partners that form the organization called Central Alberta First. So if you're looking for a grant for your business, guess what? You just got one. How awesome is that? So, and also all of the business services that are available through RBSN are at no cost to you. So should you want to come and have a conversation with me or have a coffee, I love the coffees. I had one with Teresa one day and the 30 minutes turned into 90 minutes and we had so much fun. And here she is. So with that said, thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you for everybody joining us today. And you will receive the link to not just this recording, but you'll receive the link to our entire Biz Bite library in the email that I'm sending you. It's about 18 different episodes of our Biz Bites, ranging from, again, more conversations on AI, on how to increase your sales, how to manage your people, exit strategies and succession planning. And next month, I'll send you the link to next month because we're talking about cybersecurity, all the data that we're putting out there, cybersecurity for non-techie business owners. So we have a cybersecurity expert who really is speaking the language that we speak in the day-to-day of how safe is the data, what do we do to make it safe, what happens if somebody accidentally accesses or shares the data? So that's a great conversation to come back with our great presenter. His name is Subi from Red Deer Polytechnic. So I'll send the link to that as well. So with all that said, thank you so much for joining us today. And I will say goodbye, and hopefully I'll see you next month at our next Biz Bite. Thanks everyone for joining us. Bye for now.